Hi everyone, it's me, Krylios, Team Racine, Productions MC and producer. And my guest today is Josh Gibson. Hello, Josh.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing well. How are you?
Hi, everyone. It's me,
Thank
Krylios,
you
Team
so much. Could you
Racine,
go ahead and
Productions,
tell our
MC, and
viewers,
producer. And
um,
my guest
go
today
ahead and tell
is
our
Josh
viewers
Gibson. Hello,
how,
Josh.
who you
Hey,
are
how are
and
you?
what you do. Josh, you're muted. There we go. Thank you.
Sorry about that. But I'm Josh Gibson. I'm Director of Communications for the DC Council. I've been doing that since about 2014.
Wow, wow. Now tell me, what does you deal with the DC Council, and DC is one of the I mean the one of the most major cities in America. I mean, honestly. And so it must be something being the director of communications for the DC Council, because this basically means that you are the mouthpiece for the council. Tell me what that is like.
Well, it's obviously a big responsibility, but I'm someone who grew up studying politics. I grew up in the DC area, about 20 years in Montgomery County, about 20 years now in DC. If I'm going to be involved in politics, this is where I want to be. And even though it's a big responsibility, I know that I'm representing an organization that I have a big stake in and care a lot about. So it's a good fit.
I like it. I like it. And speaking of, representing and representation, I was told by from our leader of Team Racing that it was your social media, your tweet that allowed a the United Shades of America show to really look at the real DC and the individuals and the people that live here and that come from here. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it really was, I think, a really good example of the power of social media in the
Yeah.
sense that I was a fan of the United Shades show. They focus on subcultures, quote unquote, subcultures within America. And I reached out to them through the council Twitter feed and said, hey, I know this is sort of, a little bit like man bites dog, sort of backwards way of what you'd expect. But we in the nation's capital, the theoretically most powerful city in the world, are a subculture. People don't realize that we're also a city, a hometown like everyone else is. And we happen to not have a vote in Congress. So we are a subculture that is at some real disadvantages. And it would be great if you did a story. And Kamau Bell, the host, I think at the time tweeted back the emoji. That was his response. I wasn't sure if that was like he was skeptical of the idea or if that was like, like seriously thinking about it. And then lo and behold, fast forward, they were in DC doing the show, and they did a full hour on our situation. And like all the shows, he seems to be good at parachuting in, getting up to speed, and doing a sensitive look at the situation that group faces.
Of course, definitely. And it's an election year. We're going through an election period at this point, and of course, there are seats that are being ran for in the DC Council, of course. And I've been, lucky enough, fortunate enough to interview many of the candidates that were running in the primaries, and that will continue to, run in the general election. Tell me, what it's like at, the DC Council during a time like this, and especially, I want to have your unique perspective, especially since we're in an unprecedented time of the pandemic. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's kind of strange working for a legislature because directly report to the secretary of the council, who is basically the chief operating officer of the council. But obviously, we all work for the council as a whole. So to work for 13 sort of indirect bosses, and then to have the additional complication of the personnel changes. Some folks don't run again, some folks don't win when they run, new folks get elected. So that's kind of an interesting element. And this, obviously when we're career folks who work for the council, we stay out of the political side.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I will say is that it speaks a bit to the need for statehood, in my mind, is that we have this little council representing a very political town with a lot of talented, intelligent people with a lot of different perspectives. And I would, the group of folks running for at large, I would borderline take them all and make them a second house of our legislature. It's such a good, talented, strong group of people that it's a shame that we're only going to end up with two of them on the council.
Yes, and let's talk about that for viewers who don't know about the DC at large race. Could you talk to me a little bit about that voting process?
Yeah, basically the top 2 vote getters in November will get council seats. One of the many sort of manipulative things that was done when we were given home rule was that because DC as a city has a history of voting Democratic, they said that a couple of the seats had to be reserved for non-Democrats. So basically, of the top vote getters, the top 2 get it, but under no circumstances could 2 Democrats get those seats. So there's 24 or 25 people who are running.
Yeah,
and
last count.
There are only going to be 2 who make it onto the council, and will start their terms in January.
And that's really, really interesting. Tell me, do you think, or do you have any opinion on, instant runoff voting or ranked choice here, in the district, considering the fact, for example, 25 people are running for, like the at-large seats. Do you think that would change things in the district or make, the voting process easier or better for the, the voters?
I've definitely heard arguments on both sides. It's been introduced in the council before. I don't know if there's been a hearing on the topic, but that there's clearly pros and cons. It's a very different. It changes the strategy of voting, because you're not just thinking of who is my favorite person, but if it's not my favorite person, then who would my second or third favorite person be? Or is there anyone who I really am interested in not wanting on the council? How would I arrange my votes to do that? So it's I think it demands a more educated voter and more time prepping before you cast your vote, if we were ever to go that direction. But it's interesting. It's interesting if you like to kind of game it through and think through strategy and so forth. It's kind of an interesting mental exercise, if nothing else, for now.
Yes, I can see that. Well, Josh, could you allow our viewers, allow our audience to know how they can keep up and follow with all of the DC Council social media and anything else that's just maybe important that they need to keep up with?
Well, we're on Twitter is kind of our bread and butter. So if you're only going to follow one, I would say at Council of DC is our Twitter feed. We're also on Facebook. We also are now starting to be on Instagram, since that seems to be where a lot of folks are heading. So that's also at Council of DC, and the Facebook is, you can find us also at Council of DC. Something new we've been doing for a couple of years is we have a podcast and radio show called Hearing the Council. And the radio show airs on WHUR FM 4, 96.3 FM 4, or dcradio.gov. That's if you want to listen to the show when it airs. Otherwise, you can just listen to it as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Just search on Council of District of Columbia, and it'll pop right up. And we've done about over 50 interviews, half-hour long interviews with all of the council members. Some of them have come back 4, 5, 6 times.
Wow.
Some are more serious, policy-based. Some are more getting to know you, low-key and formal. But it's kind of a great way to get into the head of the council members a little bit.
Yeah.
We give them a bit longer to talk, to answer questions. So it's a sort of a deeper, more nuanced look than you get from a lot of short, brief, broader radio interviews.
Yeah, 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 definitely. You told me something about a blog.
I said blog, but I meant podcast.
Okay, cool.
I was swapping my words out.
No problem. Well, thank you so much, Josh. Such a pleasure you joining us today.
Oh, absolutely. Happy to help.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And you have a great day. And to our viewers, thank you guys for watching. Bye, everyone.